Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Dr. Arikana Chihombori. In my previous life, and now Ambassador Arikana Chihombori. I'm the African Union Ambassador to the United States. Coming here this morning, I ran into a very interesting woman. She called herself Mother Africa, and she had a special message that she wanted to give to her children. First, there's a train that's running around this country from New York all the way to California, down to Central America, and all the way down to South America, and all the way to the Caribbean. And she has a story to tell. She wanted you all to know that Uncle Kofi died last month. He started coughing. And you know, Uncle Kofi has been smoking for the past 30 years. And it looks like all that smoking has caught up with him. And the doctors say he had this thing called cancer. We don't know what to do about that. And you know, Kwabena has been drinking for a long time. And they say he had this infection in his liver. He turned yellow. We all didn't know what was going on. And they say he's now in the departure lounge. You see, in Africa, when it all started with the AIDS epidemic. So first, when you get diagnosed, they say, oh, he has bought his ticket. And then when you are getting ready to exit, based on your symptoms, so because they didn't want to talk about the big H, they'll say, oh, he's now in the departure lounge. His visa came out and he's in the departure lounge. They said, well, you know, Uncle Kwabena he's in the departure lounge. And you know, your cousin, Betty, they say he was having this vaginal discharge, and it's been going on for a while. Now she's gotten so thin, and she looks like she's got AIDS. But they don't think it's HIV. They say it's something else that has to do with female parts. And she died 2 weeks ago. And she hears all this is happening in villages all over Africa. And she thought she really needed to just go on to the diaspora and deliver the message to her children that something is going on in Africa that you all needed to know. And this something, from what she hears, is called cancer. We didn't used to have it. And lately, people just pass out and die. They say a heart attack. And we just didn't used to see that. So she really wanted that. Maybe my children would have had the opportunity to get out of Africa. Maybe they have an explanation. Maybe they have an answer. So this train is running around the Americas. And this train is spreading the message to its diaspora that something is going on in Africa. And Mother Africa needs her children. I start all my presentations by letting people know who is the African Union. Because I realize not only do people, the Africans themselves, not quite understand who is the African Union and what African Union means and can do in your life. African Union is you, the African diaspora. The first ever known union of any African states was in 1958, when the French were giving up their colonies. They gave the Francophone colonies an opportunity to either be free with connections to France, or you can be free, completely unattached to France. The rest of the Francophone countries elected to stay connected to France, except Guinea and Mali. Guinea and Mali wanted to be completely liberated from France. This, of course, really upset the French, who didn't understand why an African country would want to be associated with France. So history tells us that they went in and took everything that they thought they had brought to Guinea and Mali, including the last teaspoon in the country. They proceeded to pour concrete in the sewage pipes, left the two economies completely devastated. Kwame Nkrumah, then president of Ghana, in his efforts to assist these two economies, created the first ever known unity of any African states. A couple of years later, a few other African states got together in Morocco, and a few years later, a few more organized in Ethiopia. Kwame Nkrumah and other African leaders at that time decided to get together under Kwame Nkrumah's leadership, and they met in 1963 and formed the first ever known Organization of African Unity. At that time, there were 31 states. The whole agenda for that meeting was when Kwame Nkrumah uttered those famous words, Africa for the Africans first, and African Union now. Since then, there has been meetings. As you know, Africa is a very large continent, and getting a consensus is not easy. It is a process. By 2002, they renamed Organization of African Unity, or AU, African Union, which is now AU. The heads of states meet twice a year to discuss issues pivotal to the continent. They report on the progress in their own countries. We used to be 55 countries. In 1984, Morocco, the issue between Morocco and Western Sahara, it became a contentious issue, and Morocco dropped out. But we're glad to say, as of January this year, Morocco is back being part of the Union, and the African children are whole again. There's a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen. As I started my presentation, Mother Africa is here, and she's calling on her children. Mother Africa is updating you on what's going on back home. It's a big job. It's a large continent. She has a work cut out for her. But fortunately, she has very beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible children in the diaspora. She's calling you, and she's reminding us that out of many, we are one. That you are your sister's keeper. That it takes a village to raise a child. I know it's not easy being an African abroad. Quite often, we're met with cynicism and doubt, and those who tell us we cannot, those who tell us Africa cannot. But I have no doubt in my mind that as a united front of the African children, we will come together and reply with a resounding voice that sums up the spirit of a people. Like President Obama said, yes we can. Yes we can, as a united front of the African diaspora, say no to women dying while giving birth to another life. We're going to say no to children going to bed on an empty stomach. We're going to say no to people dying of infectious diseases unnecessarily, diseases that can be prevented. People dying with the new diseases now, the non-communicable diseases that didn't used to be an issue in Africa, all in the name of progress. Now that I can afford it, I can go eat at KFC. You will notice there are lots of these fast food restaurants popping up all over Africa. That's progress. Now I can afford to smoke cigarettes that I buy from the store. That's progress. While cigarette rates, smoking rates are going down in the developed world, in Africa they are picking up. Cigarette companies are realizing that their market share is decreasing in the Western world, so they are targeting the developing world, and Africa is no exception. Are we going to sit back and watch this train that's heading for disaster, or are we going to stop it? Are we going to sit back as the children of the diaspora and allow these atrocities to continue? I don't think so. Because you know what? I know us. We, the diaspora. I know us, the friends of Africa. We are going to rise up, we're going to stand up, and we're going to say, no, no more. And we will do something about this situation. And I'm counting on you to answer the call from our beloved Mother Africa. I have no doubt in my mind that the answer is going to be, yes, we can. I thank you.
That's a very good song. Very inspirational. So we have invited another ambassador for you, and that Ambassador Bonnie Jenkins, which is a leader in the global health and security. And I will
look at my watch to see if it's afternoon yet. Good morning. It's great to be here. Thank you, Ambassador, for those great remarks. I think it really set the stage, I think, for continued discussions this morning and this afternoon. I'm Ambassador Jenkins. I was in the previous administration working for President Obama. I was there for like 8 years. And I am not a doctor. I am actually a lawyer. I have a PhD, but not in medicine, international relations. And my past years have been in international security, so you may wonder why I'm here. But the reason I came is to talk a little bit about some work that's been going, that started about 4 years ago, and it continues today to find ways that we can address infectious disease threats around the world. The reason why I am presenting this because there's a lot that I think is related to what we're talking about today. A lot of people were talking about collaborations. And this effort that we have started called the Global Health Security Agenda can only be successful if there are collaborations not only within government, but with those outside government, with academia, with everyone who's involved in issues of infectious disease. So it has some similarities to the discussions already today, and I hope that there will be a lot more collaborations in the areas that you're working in cancer. And also because infectious disease, of course, is another issue that really does affect everyone around the world. And we've seen recently with Ebola and with Zika and other infectious diseases which are ongoing, some which we don't hear about in the newspaper as much, but we know that they will continue in the future. That's one thing that, like taxes and death, they say, you know, you're going to continue to have things, but unfortunately we're going to continue to have infectious diseases in the future. So it's an issue that everyone should at least be aware of what's going on, and there may be similarities to what you're talking about the past 2 days and today as well. So I'm going to try to go through these quickly because I know I only have 20 minutes and I may even have less time now.